I'm Victor Dominello, Minister for Customer Service in New South Wales. Can I begin by acknowledging country, pay my respects to elders both past and present. Can I also thank the Australian French Chamber of Commerce and Industry for hosting today's event. It's important that, particularly in a COVID world, we stay connected, even if it has to be virtual. So again, thank you for organising it. I hope we all get a lot out of it. Can I just outline today, over the next 10 minutes, the New South Wales Government's response to COVID, some of the digital products we have in the market, the investment we're putting into digital, and most importantly, our ongoing capacity around trust to make sure that we've got a long-term plan in place to ensure that New South Wales Government remains the leader in digital right across not just Australia, but in the Southern Hemisphere, and a global leader. Firstly, let me talk about the COVID response. I argue that the New South Wales Government's response thus far has had a strong digital footprint. For example, within the first 48 hours, the Premier asked me to get together with other essentially CIOs across government agencies to bring all the data experts together so we could do some modelling in relation to mobility. Previously, every agency was doing their own thing. We brought them together, combined all the data sets so that we could track where the virus was going, because obviously if we could track mobility, we could track the virus, which was basically a proxy for mobility back then. And that proved very successful, because ultimately when the global giants such as Apple and Google released their data on a world stage, it was reassuring or comforting for us, because the modelling we did very much aligned with the modelling that they were, or the actual data they were providing. So that was a good sign. The second thing we did very early on in the piece was we released data at a suburban level, indeed a postcode level, and we were the first jurisdiction in the country to release data around infection rates at a postcode level. And again, that was a trust piece, to release data at that level in circumstances where not many countries around the world were doing it, enable us to build trust with the community to say, look, if we need to have further interventions, we need to have further incursions into your liberty, then they could see, independent of what we were doing, that this is why we were doing it, because we were being transparent with the data. Another thing we did from a digital perspective early on is to make sure that we provided businesses with financial support. So we put $750 million into business grants. And again, it's one thing for government to give business funds, it's another thing for them to get access to those funds in a fast way and in an easy way. We put it through digital channels. It was a seamless experience, high satisfaction scores, and business were getting the funds up to $10,000 into their account within 72 hours. And again, that enabled them to pay suppliers and keep the economy going, even though it was shutting down all around us because of COVID. So that was another digital response. Another response was that we got the registration details of the businesses in a COVID-safe way. So they had their registration plans. And again, that was done through digital channels. So it was a seamless experience. They could download their plans, load it up into their shops to make sure that we were all operating in a COVID-safe way. And then finally, there's many more examples, but I'll give you the final one. It was around the check-in feature. We wanted to make sure that if people were moving into high-risk areas such as pubs, clubs, restaurants, cafes, that they could check in securely through a QR code. So in the past, people would have a walk-in culture. We had to rapidly change that culture to a check-in culture, which again required digital. We opened it up to the broader ecosystem, but there were a whole lot of businesses that did not have that capability. So we developed our own QR code. We provided it to businesses free of charge. So it means that they didn't have to muck around with the paper and pen, which was itself a a contagion risk, and that has gone really well. 1 million people so far in New South Wales have used it, with a 93% satisfaction rate, 93.95 indeed. So that's the first part. The second part is what investments are we doing around digital? Well, the first thing we're doing is the Smart Places strategy. Every investment over $10 million has to have smart sensor technology embedded in it, and we have got over $103 billion over the next 4 years in terms of infrastructure. So for every 10 million and above, that's smart, and it means there's a whole lot of smart technology coming our way in the infrastructure that we're building out. And then the second piece is for all the IT spend. We're spending on average about $5 billion a year. Everything over $5 million has to again embed smart technology. So it's a lot of smarts in our IT systems. Then the third thing we're doing is for the real innovative, game-changing projects. We've set up an Australian first $1.6 billion over 3 years for a smart digital infrastructure fund, essentially. And again, for the real brave, bold projects, that's a game changer rather than just the BAU, we're rolling that out. Other things I want to talk about is some other products. So already we got e-planning that's being rolled out, which is just making planning seamless in New South Wales. We're building on top of that e-construction. On top of that, we've got the digital twin, which is mapping out pretty much Western Sydney, not just in 2D or 3D, but indeed 4D. So that enables businesses to seriously de-risk their construction pipeline, because not only do they now know where to put the crane, but they can also model when to put the crane, because again it's a 4D descriptor. And this is not just leading Australia, it is leading the world. And I've got a letter from Lend-Lease when we launched this strategy earlier this year, and they were talking about the power of digital twin. And if I can just quote, according to Lend-Lease, they have said that using digital twin, it can decrease the cost of construction by up to 20% relative to today's processes. They continue to say it increases the speed to market by up to 100-fold and provide up to 100 times more options through the enablement of virtual scenario testing of proposed new developments. Then they go on to say the state of New South Wales is on a path to becoming a global leader in the development of digital twin technology, and we're at the very forefront of that. The reason I want to read that out to you is because it is not just the government doing its own. We are working with global leaders such as Lend-Lease to make sure that we are a global leader in the digital space. Now, if I try to find efficiencies of 1%, 2%, 3%, that's really hard. If we're using technology to get efficiencies of up to 20%, that is just a tectonic change that you can only deliver through digital. Can I conclude on this note? We can build any digital product we like. We put man on the moon 50 years ago. You can really build anything in a digital world now, but it's got to be built on trust. And that's why the New South Wales government is seriously upping its ante when it comes to its trust posture. So, for example, one of the components is around security. We're putting $240 million into cyber over the next 3 years. This is not just going to embed us as a leader in Australia, but a world leader when it comes to cybersecurity over the next 3 years. And that is a strong component of trust. We've already got the AI strategy launched because we know that together with the AI, together with quantum, together with 5G, let alone 6G that's coming around the corner, this means that we're going to have a rapid uptake in terms of digital AI capability. And it means that we need to have the trust structures in place to have an ethical framework about what we do. If governments don't have that in place, then they're just going to be rolling out digital without the trust, and that means I'll have one step forward, 10 steps back. We want to make sure that we don't have just one step forward. We want to move rapidly as we move into the future, but we've got to bring the community with us, and that's why we've got this trust infrastructure in place. Anyway, I hope you get a lot out of it today, and I hope I've given you a bit of a snapshot of how New South Wales is not just leading Australia, but in many ways leading the world when it comes to digital. And our ambition is unbelievably bold, because we know that if we deliver great digital service to the people of our great state, it goes to trust, it goes to job creation, and it goes to superior service delivery.